Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We do hope you're keeping very safe and well. Thank you for joining us as, like I say, we discuss Tottenham Hotspur in the Premier League under our fresh new head coach, Antonio Conte. If you're listening to the show for the very first time, you can find us on iTunes, on Spotify, or on Audio Boom, or across a range of different social media platforms. We're, of course, on Twitter at Last Word on Spurs. We're on Facebook and Instagram too. And as you guys now know, for better or for worse, we are also live on YouTube. Delighted to have joining us. I've got first up my co-host of this crazy train, Mr. Lee McQueen is in the house. Lee, how are you?
Ricky, good evening. Good evening to our wonderful guest that you'll introduce in a second, and all of the listeners and all of the viewers as well. So the Conte era is up and running. Some people will say it was an amazing defensive display. Some people would have called for Nuno's head after having 0 shots on target for another 90 minutes. I'm sure we'll get into it, Rick.
We will indeed. We most certainly will. And also pleased to be welcoming back to the show. Always opinionated, always gives us her thoughts, never, like I say, holds back. We've got the great Talia Coren joining us. Talia, lovely to have you here. How are you?
I am really good. Always a pleasure to be back. So thank you for having me. And like you say, for better or worse, here we are, new manager, same content, same players. So, we're in for a treat as usual.
Exactly. What has changed? And also pleased to be handing out a debut on the Last Word on Spurs. This is nobody's fault, but in terms of debuts, I feel like we always, I say, give it a difficult time for some people to make their debut on this show. But please be welcome into the show. We've got journalist, we've got also podcaster as well. And forgive me, Andrew, you're going to mention that podcast to us right now, what that is. But we've got Andrew Gold. Andrew, give us a shout out of what that podcast is, firstly, and lovely to have you here. We're going to unmute Andrew now to bring him in.
Oh, have you got me? Am I in here?
We've got you.
Thank you. It's called On the Edge with Andrew Gold. I talk with psychopaths and murderers and stuff. But yeah, no, that's why I wanted to talk with you guys. No, not really. It's exciting because it's the first time I actually get to talk about football as a journalist. I've been going to Spurs since I was 4, so I'm really up for this.
Fantastic. That's like lovely to have you here. And we've got a lot to get into. I mean, it's funny, the subject you touched upon there, Andrew. I think some people can relate to Spurs in those ways in the last 3 or 4 years. So I want to say we're in good company. I must just say, we have an announcement here on the Last Word on Spurs. It's something you might have seen because we're running a competition at the moment. Last Word on Spurs has reached the absolute marathon of 400 podcasts. Now, for that kind of marathon to get to, it wouldn't be right just to kind of overlook that. And I think it's best to get it out of the way now before we go towards the end of the show and bring this up. But I just want to take this opportunity to thank every single listener, every contributor, the likes of Talia, Mr. Lee McQueen, who's been with us now for, God, I mean, Lee, mentally, I don't know how long have you been here with us, Lee? I think you've been with us for probably a lot of those shows. 300 of those shows, did you say?
When did we sell Carl Walker? I think it was my first ever show when you invited me onto this wonderful podcast. Yeah, you said to me, right, Lee, you're coming on, blah blah blah, and I said on that very first show, don't sell Kyle Walker, and obviously we did. So it was back then, whenever that was. Friends and listeners, and viewers, I don't know, but it's been an absolute wonderful journey. I mean, it is a crazy train. I absolutely love being part of this. First and foremost, like the people that are in our WhatsApp groups, that the regulars that are coming on, the Talias, obviously Andrew going to come on probably more and more as the season progresses, and everyone else that you've had on the show, the legends that we've had back on, players, past players, the journalists that we get. We're very, very lucky, very lucky. I mean, I was hugely fortunate to have a spell on TV long ago, which I loved. But to do this is in my passion as well. It's just been absolutely wonderful. We've gone through some outrageously good times and some proper dross as well. And to get to 400 is brilliant. Here's to the next 400, Rick.
Totally agree. And we do have the next 400 that we do have some trophies to talk about. No pressure, Antonio. We know you're watching. We know you're listening. As we do know, lots of Sonny, Kane, Bergwijn. I tell you, there's a lot of people, like I say, we know players, fans alike. Like I say, thank you so much for all your support. Right, guys, it is time to get into the show because, like I say, we've just overseen Tottenham Hotspur draw a blank in Antonio Conte's first Premier League game in charge. And I'm going to start with Lee on this one. Lee, for me, I mean, whilst the quality of the performance was fairly low, I've got to say that from my perspective, I'd be interested to see your take on this. I thought at least we're seeing some intent and actual patterns of play of what Spurs are trying to do. I think the quality will come in time. You can look at it for me. I would think that the VAR decision, the overturn, changed the dynamic of that game. And we looked like we were slipping back into our old ways. But the clean sheet, I think, is massive. I think that would have been really important to Antonio to get that under his belt. And I do think the rest will follow. I think it goes without saying we look blunt up front, of course. The lack of shots is really concerning. But, I mean, sorting that defence is a priority. And I'm sure in the upcoming January transfer window, and you've just heard from Fabrizio on our last show, that's a massive priority for the club. How did you reflect, Lee, on that performance up at Goodison and us getting just a point?
Yeah, well, look, I'm not going to lie. I just come into the green room, right? So viewers and listeners, and Andrew and I have never met. Me and Tyler have been on a few shows together before. I've just burst into the green room and gone, that was an absolute disgrace. So I'm not going to say that it wasn't. But, I mean, seeing some of the comments and interacting with some of the fans, other fans and stuff like that on Twitter. But when you look at the statistics, right? Statistically, we're coming into this game, and the reality of the situation is Conte's had 1 or 2 training sessions. So I get that. I'm not laying it at his door. But what I'm disappointed about the most, to be fair, listeners and viewers tonight, is the new manager bounce. He's come in, and this guy is an absolute winner. He's one of the best managers in the world, and we still look lackluster. Like, even after, it still felt like to me that we wasn't running through walls for him and really wanting to press. There was no high press, I didn't think, today. I think the energy was, we looked more defensive than we did going forward. We had 0 shots on target, and you have to talk about that tonight, Rick, because last weekend against Manchester United, we had 0 shots on target everywhere, including myself. Massively, by the way, was absolutely calling for Nuno's head. We can't play football like it's an absolute joke. Today against Everton side, let's be brutally honest about it. They've lost their last 3. They're struggling. They got absolutely torn apart by Watford a week ago or so, 10 days ago, whenever it was. They've only had 2 shots on target themselves. So I think to me, whether or not they've been beasted in training, that extra training session that Antonio took while he was late for his press conference, is taking it out of their legs. But I was expecting, to be honest, a more of a front foot attack on this Everton side, and it didn't materialise. But possession, where we shaded possession, we shaded the passes, we shaded the passing accuracy, which again, from a statistic perspective, is mind-blowing, because I thought we were really poor in possession of the football today. And it was just a bit... Look, the word I'm looking for is, I'm not moaning, I'm just saying it's a bit disappointing. I felt a little bit flat. To come away, it felt like a loss more than a win, Rick. That's what I would say. Yeah,
I think the whole thing is, Lee, that we've obviously... we've hyped this appointment up. I mean, on the last one on Spurs. If anyone's watched our last couple of shows, we had Crackers, bless him, who went from a plane to a train in a station to a house to get on this show last week, which I know did absolutely unbelievable views. And I've got to thank, again, the viewers so much in the top, 15, 16 podcasts in sport in worldwide, which is just incredible for where this show is going. And like I say, thank you again to our wonderful listeners and viewers for making that even possible. Talia, let's come along to you, because I know you won't hold back. You never do. This time last week, we have to remember that Spurs, we did just lose 3-0 to Man United, right? And I think we all acknowledge there's lots of work to do for Antonio Conte to stamp his own mark on this team. And we all know there's a real need for a transformation, and that's his own words that he's called that. But it was a pretty dismal game. I'm not going to disagree with what Lee says there. 227 minutes now without a Premier League shot on target for Spurs, and there's much to ponder for Antonio Conte going into this international breaks. Tell us your thoughts, Talia, of how you saw that game up at Goodison Park.
I mean, I agree, obviously, with what Lee said for the most part. I think, you can't not disagree. We've all watched enough football over the last amount of years to know that is the team that we have, and that is the way that we play. And Conte was never going to come in, click his fingers and be like, oh my God, we're this incredible team. And I think, to be honest, that is primarily a small problem, is that people expect that there is an instant change. We come on here, slag off the Ben Davis and the Lo Celso and Dyer and whoever else, and he's not a magician that can just be like, oh, you're the best defender in the league. Like, that's not going to happen. And we've seen it before. When you change style of play, it does take time for players to adapt. And 1 and 2 training sessions isn't enough to do that. But I think on the other side of that, and to more Lee's point, I think what I found quite disappointing was on Thursday. I was at the game on Thursday and last Saturday. And on Thursday, we started so strong and positive, and we were attacking, and offensively we looked really strong. And today we didn't really see that. And, of course, we all know that our defence is not great. And conceding those 2 goals on Thursday was a bit like typical Tottenham, like nothing's changed. But today I don't think we saw the same half an hour at all that we saw through Vitesse. And that is what I think was worrying, because, again, to that new manager bounce, we looked like that on Thursday a little bit. I think everyone was a bit like, this is good. Like, we're playing attacking football. Conte likes attacking football. He's going to get the best out of Kane. He's going to get the best out of Sonny. He's going to replace half the defenders. So, do you know what? It doesn't matter. But at least offensively, we've got some of the best players.
Sorry, could you say that again? My apologies.
Sorry, Siri.
Is that Daniel Levy just popped up there?
Yeah, Siri. Your opinion is not wanted on the podcast. Thank you.
Is that Siri having a view as well? We are going worldwide here, I tell you. Even Siri wants to come on.
It's a 5th guest. Sorry about that. But no, I think that, is what I found the most, not upsetting or like whatever, but I think we expected to see exactly what we saw on Thursday and build upon that attacking side, and we didn't see that today. It was lackluster. Kane was so disinterested today. Reguilón was absolutely shocking. Lo Celso, corner, all of that. We don't need to go into details. I'm sure we'll come to it. But yeah, in general, that's what I think is the biggest problem. We're not going to change straight away, but at the same time, it almost feels like a step back on Thursday, which is a bit like, especially against Everton, they are in a down patch. So I'd like to think we should have been able to at least score.
Yeah, I mean, even despite Siri trying to interrupt you there, Talia, a lot of people thinking you're telling the truth. So always tell the truth. Always tell the truth on this show. Like I say, you can't really hold back with Spurs the way it is. Let's bring Andrew Gold in, Ange, for his debut. Andrew, I think overall, we'd all agree that Spurs look more solid at the back. And that's something we've obviously all been concerned about over the course of from the start of the season to where we were at this point. But going forward, I still think, despite, again, agreeing partly with Talia and Lee in terms of the style, there were, to me, hints, glimpses of some kind of pattern of play. And although we didn't create enough, players did get enough in good positions where at the final ball, I know Conte referred to this in the post-match presser, which we are going to come on to, the final ball is what, for me, is just letting us down at the moment. And I have to say, I thought the back 3 were good alongside Royal, Skip and Højbjerg. I think, you look at that defensive unit we've got there, I think, that is something to work on. We're not going to be able to change the whole squad, as we know. So, Andrew, thoughts overall on that draw up at Goodison?
Yeah, I think what you're saying about the change in style is probably the most noticeable effects of that. If we look back at the game, that our 2 biggest chances in terms of clear-cut chances both fell to fullbacks. So Emerson Royale's header, and then Reguilón hit he just completely smashed it into the stands, didn't he? So I do wonder in the long term if maybe Lucas might get a go at a wing-back role. If the wing-backs are going to be getting forward, Reguilón we've seen go through on goal a few times over the last few years, and he's diabolical there. Emerson's header, I mean, it was like his elbow in his arm and his hand, it went all over the place. He closed his eyes, I think, as you've both said already, you've all said we've got to, we've obviously got to give Conte some time. I remember when, obviously when Poch came in, it took a good few months, didn't it? And I find these podcasts really fascinating because I find sometimes the fans know and the pundits or you guys, know a little bit more than the manager. And I know that sounds ridiculous. I know people are listening going, what are you talking about? But when the manager's just come in, you've been watching these players for years, and he's got a few days. So obviously, he's a genius in football, Conte. When Poch first came in, do you remember he made like Adebayor and Kabul captain and vice captain, which I think every Spurs fan watching would have been like, hang on, mate, no, you're not. And by the end, he changed it. Klopp came into Liverpool, and I think there's one player still in who was in the first game he played and still playing in the Champions League final. So this is going to take a very long time, and I think most of us would have probably told Conte, as good as the back 3 were, that Ben Davies is probably not going to be one of his starting defenders for very long. It might be the case that Eric Dyer isn't either. We could have told him as well, you're not going to get much creativity out of Skip and Højbjerg. As good as they are at what they do, they have very specific roles. So there's going to have to be some tampering and changing. But as you say, there were patterns of play, namely the fullbacks getting forward, and also the fullbacks or wingbacks, when they get the ball, they're passing inside, which is something we haven't seen for a long time. They pass inside every time so that it went to Højbjerg or Skip. and they didn't always know exactly what to do with it. And I think it will take some time. And those who support Winks, and that's fewer and fewer people every week, will think, well, maybe he can do a job there because he can take it to feet. And that's one thing he does have. He's known as a passer, but he can't pass. But he can control it in tight spaces. He can do a bit of a Scott Parker and do a few pirouettes. And maybe that's what Conte needs in this system. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes on in the next few weeks and months.
Yeah, I feel like it's a real desperate there, like I say, hopeful there for Harry Winks. If Harry's listening, Harry, you've got a chance here. You've got a chance. On the screen, I can see Talia's face. Talia's thinking there's not a chance for Harry Winks. Joey on the screen says, there's sad reality. Some of the players we rate at Spurs simply aren't good enough. Højbjerg is bang average, and Reguilon is one of the most one-footed players I've ever seen. We are going to come on to that, say those players in general. We always do an overview. There's Talia giving her thoughts already. Lee, I want to come back round to you because, I mean, I think it's clear already to see how Conte wants Spurs to play. He's already changed up that formation, as we know, going to a 3-5-2. Many will feel it's just a shame at the moment that we don't actually have the players good enough to be able to do this. So it does feel for Conte that the transfer windows, the upcoming one in January, and of course, summer's going to ultimately be key for. He's got an 18-month contract. So you feel these windows coming are so crucial to identify what we need in order to move quickly. But again, I think today's another reminder that for Conte, this is not going to be an overnight fix. And although there's some encouraging signs, there's two all but familiar problems, right? The lack of shots, the lack of movement, that lack of a playmaker. Do you think there's one thing we've got to be as Spurs fans? And I know I'm not great for this. I know, like I say, you coming in and storming in as you did. Patience is probably one of our hardest key attributes to try and provide. Do we have to do that for this to work?
Yeah, of course there needs to be patience. And again, reading through some of the comments and stuff, I agree with some of them. I don't agree with some of them. That's the beauty of why we do these shows and why we do what we're doing. But the cold reality, and Talia nail on the edge. The cold reality is that we didn't come out firing on all cylinders. I would have thought that with these players wanting to impress this new world class manager that we have, and there's no doubt he's world class, no doubt. If I've got a new boss and I'm thinking, my word, he's going to work me or she's going to work me to death, and I need to impress and I need to be on my game, why would I come out and not do that as an individual and know my role and know my job, and then the whole team do that? Like Talia said, if we'd have come out of the blocks, Everton have got three on the bounce. If we'd have battered them for the first 5 minutes of that game, that crowd would have gone. That crowd would have been way behind them. They'd have been for, hang on a minute, you go and get 1-0 up or, go and score in the first 10, 15 minutes of that game, that's game over, in my opinion. That's how vulnerable they were. And we just didn't have the cutting the edge or that's it. That's the word I'm looking for, the edge to go and do that. Yes, creative midfielder, but you've got, regardless of what we think of them or not, I think it's very interesting that, 2 games on the trot now, and he's only had 2 games and only, 2 training sessions. But he's brought on substitutes as Tungan Dembele and Lo Celso, and Dele's not got a sniff. So that's very interesting, isn't it? To see what's going on there. But when you look at Tungan Dembele, when you look at Lo Celso, when you look at Dele Alli, when you look at Lucas Moura, when you look at Heung-min Son, when you look at Harry Kane, I mean, come on, everybody's watching this and listening to us as well. That has got at least a shot on target in the players that I've talked about. And we didn't have another one today. I don't know what the stats are. I should have it in the blue book. I think Jay's put it on the group earlier. That's 2 90 minutes worth of no shots on target, right? Manchester United now this game. And then there was a whole half against West Ham United as well. So that's 2 matches and a half of football in the Premier League where we haven't had a shot on target. I mean, yes, the defence. So let's balance it. I thought we defended really well. I think that we wasn't put under pressure. I thought Hugo, I thought it was an excellent save, to be fair. I thought it wasn't a penalty at all. I don't think he had to do much. So, the 2 teams really cancelled themselves out. 50-50 really game. I called that under Jose when we lost 5-4 in the cup. I said, look, it's a 50-50 game. That day we went for it. And obviously we scored 4, but they scored 5. Today, it was just a drab game. But hopefully, look, and I called it out as well. My best mate, Steph, he said to me on WhatsApp earlier, he said, this is going to be like a pre-season for Conte. So, that's probably one of the reasons why he's brought on Doherty, for example, when he could have brought on Steven Bergwijn, couldn't he? And played him down the left as a left wing back or something like that. Now, Mario's saying there on the screen that you're putting up, Rick, Conte has to drop Kane. I mean, sure, we'll get into Kane, maybe now. I mean, he wasn't very good today, was he? I mean, I'm one of his biggest advocates,
we will come on
his biggest fans, but
yeah,
he wasn't very good. And you know, and when you've got no service going into him, I get that. But it's also there was times where he was coming so deep where he would ping a ball. And normally, I always remember that crossfield ball for I think it was Dele Alli and Swansea years ago against Swansea when we beat them 3-1, teaming down with rain. And I was thinking, wow, this guy can pass. And we've seen how good he is as a number 10. Today, his passes weren't even meeting their targets, and that's not right, is it?
No, it's not indeed. It isn't at all. Like I say, to kind of balance this as we kind of move into the show itself, but positives, you'd probably say clean sheet, some attacking shape to our play. Negatives, again, no shots on goal. Fitness at the moment looks horrendous. And you think under Conte, that isn't going to remain the same.
Got to improve, isn't it? That's going to improve. There's no doubt about that.
You just know. I mean, I think part of the backroom staff there, and I'm sure the guys on the screen here will also say this in the comments, that I think part of the bargaining tool was he's got so many members of staff to bring in terms of that backroom staff. I think half of them are fitness coaches. So you can bet your life that a lot of these players, I know they're going away on international breaks now, but, you know, when they do come back, they're going to have a completely different regime. And I think we've already seen, and to our wonderful away fans today and to the fans that were at Vitesse already, we've seen even in the warm-ups before the game, that's of a completely different nature now. There's almost a real intensity during the warm-ups, a different kind of focus, different aspects. I'm sure, again, we're going to see that going on. But we did look absolutely knackered towards the end. But I will, again, balance that and say today, I think you can see the plan in action in terms of the attack from the back. We know it's a process. It's going to take a while. I've seen numerous comments on the screen here saying Klopp, it took a couple of years. David Moyes at West Ham, it took a couple of years. We know this doesn't happen overnight. And we know that these players, some of them, they've been under 3 or 4 different managers. And I have to say this, you know, some of these players have been asked to do certain jobs. And it does take a while to, you know, understand a new message, a new philosophy. And I think we have to recognise that, you know, the shackles of Mourinho for some of these players, as we all know, some people say having Mourinho at your football club, it takes at least a year or so to even get out of that cycle. We're not even there yet. And they've had Nuno as well, who's been another negative manager. So to ask the players to play, go on, Lee.
Sorry, just quickly, just on that, I know you're going to the other guests quickly, but someone posted on Twitter, I'll find it and give them the credit, but they said that at the moment, Tottenham Hotspur have offered Mauricio Pochettino, Jose Mourinho, and Nuno and Conte all of their contracts or their contracts lasted until 2023.
Rich Jolly. Yeah,
got 4 managers that have had contracts in 2023. So look, I do get the balance and stuff. I just think that emotion really of watching the game today, it was just a bit frustrating. It was a bit frustrating to say that defensively we were good. But, you know, the reality of the situation is that we need to get better going forward. And there's a couple of comments in there as well. And I think somebody you mentioned earlier about the kind of defensive midfielders. I do agree with you. I think they played, you know, defensively today, we played well. When you look at his Chelsea team, you know, when he played 3-4-3, he typically played Matic and Kante together. Like sometimes he'd bring in a Fabregas to make that creativity in that pocket. But ultimately, he played David Luiz, Azpilicueta and Cahill as 3 centre-backs. And his 2 midfielders were typically Kante, who, look, he's got a better engine than any of ours. Let's be honest about it. He's one of the world-class players, but defensive midfielder. And also Matic, who's a little bit older, but also a defensive midfielder. So, you know, there is some similarities there. So you can see straight away what he's trying to do. I do agree with you, Rick, but it's just disappointing. You know, they played Hazard, Costa and Pedro up front. And when you look at Son, Kane and Moura, you know, arguably, you would say that we've got a better firepower than what Chelsea had back in the day. Do you know what I mean? And you know, his first game was against West Ham. They had 6 shots on target and they won 2-1. So it wasn't a breeze for them. But given the fact that he had a whole pre-season to train them, I get that. But I was just disappointed that we had 0 shots on target, because today, if you go and have a shot on target, you probably score. Pickford can be, you know, really, you know, he could be up and down, can't he? Do you know what I mean?
I do, and to add on that, Lee, I do think, you know, the problem is we were playing against an Everton team that was so out of form. There was massive pressure again on Benitez already this early on. They've got disgruntled fans, and you do feel, you know, having a couple of shots, going 1 up. I can tell you 100% that if Spurs went 1 up in that game, Everton weren't coming back. Their fans would have got on top of the manager, they would have got on top of the players, and I think Spurs would have won that game. And again, it goes back to that frustration that you say, have a shot. Just have a chance. You know, if you don't take a shot, you're never going to know the answer. But I just want to fit in. I do just want to fit in some of our listener questions. I think over 50 of them into the show. Again, thank you so much for all your questions. We try and read a flavour of them out on every single show. Nikki at Highland Spurs, I think Nikki's watching right now. Nikki, big up to you. Thank you so much. He says, if you can't win the game and don't get beat, first job on Conte's to-do list is organised defence. Clean sheet, a very good start. The process has started. It may take some patience, but will be worth it. Nice to get excited again about Spurs. Darren Kay says, long way to go, but I'm impressed with both wing-backs who've got chances to score. They need to improve their finishing. Just excited to see if Sessegnon can now come back to battle on his position. Remember his goal against Bayern. The finishing is what we need from those wing-backs. Ben Taylor says, I'm usually positive. I think it's similar to like a Lee McQueen vibe here. He says, but honestly, I'm fuming. It's embarrassing. Another Premier League game without a shot on target. I was so excited for the game with Conte, and this was so dull. Son, Kane, Reggie, also poor. I do think that's like a Lee McQueen morph there from Ben Taylor. A lot of views there, like I say, Lee sharing as well there. Jamie March says, I think we just all have to be patient and let Conte get on with the job in hand. He's going to want to try some things, some of which we may have seen before and perhaps others don't like or can't understand. We just have to trust in his methods. This may mean we have to suffer for a time. I mean, I tell you what, Jamie, we've suffered so long already. What's the difference? We've been suffering for the last the last 2 or 3 years. So what's another year worth of suffering or 18 months, although it might kill us trying to do these shows. We don't need another hero. We've got the Iron Dome says, is there any way we can just fast forward to January? Some of these lot just aren't up to it. It doesn't matter who the manager is. Dan Law says, will we ever make a goalkeeper make a save again? I can tell you, Dan, and I am a positive fan, I promise you we will definitely have another shot as long as this football club exists. I promise you on that, my life and this podcast, like I say, Rain, will definitely be there. If it doesn't, as I've said before, this podcast will fold. It will go to Jason. He'll run it as the Ryder Cup, and he'll bring on Tiger Woods to take you through the next couple of tournaments to come. Leah will come as guest in, and we'll get Talia and Andrew on to give you their thoughts on the putting paths as they go, because I haven't got a clue about golf. But before we do go, like I say, for Joe, we are going to go for our first break of the show. Taking you into this break for listeners on audio, you're going to hear from new Tottenham Hotspur head coach Antonio Conte, who hasn't just resigned yet. He is still in charge on the back of that 0-0 draw today, and he gives us his thoughts ahead of, like I say, an international break to come and reflecting on that 0-0 draw. When we come back, we'll be discussing the story of the game, some of the player performances, and what's to come after this international break. And I'm going to say, guys, thank you so much for your watching audience here. We've got over 500 of you watching us on a Sunday where Spurs have drawn 0-0 away to Everton. I don't think it's bad at all. Thank you so much. We'll crack on. We'll go into the story of the game because, listen, ultimately it hinged on 2 non-penalties, right? Absolute 2 non-penalties. We'll start with the first one, if we can, because after a VAR check, Richarlison went down under Lloris's challenge, as he always does, I must say, Richarlison. Jason warned us on our last show that he would go down, and before Lloris even got to him and then got the ball, after visiting the referee review area, Chris Kavanagh reversed the decision to award a penalty for the foul. Interestingly, Benitez after the game, I can't understand what he was watching. He said, in the middle of the pitch, it's a foul. So in the box, it has to be a foul. He then clarified, if you touch him in the middle of the pitch, it's a foul. I just think that seriously weird comments there from Rafael Benitez. I mean, I've watched that back now 3 or 4 times before coming on this podcast, and I can't understand how anyone could claim that to be a penalty. And we were warned coming over to Andrew on this. Richarlison does this so often, going down under very minimal contact. Can you understand Benitez's anger there at all? We're going to unmute Andrew now, who's doing his best to not talk all things Tottenham. We can't blame him. It was 0-0.
I was just miming. I had nothing to say, so I thought if I muted it, it'll be all right. I think he's deflecting, He's just had 3 losses. He's got 1 point out from the last 12, So it's understandable that he'd do that. Richarlison does that. Certain players do that. I mean, we've got our own right wing back at the moment, Emerson. I think he does that himself. It winds me up. He hasn't done it the last couple of games, but he can go down for a while and roll around. And, that's football these days, isn't it? You don't blame him for going down because he could have won a penalty out of it, but... No, nothing in it for me. No, but that's Richarlison, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I said, Leeds not sound like a broken record. Jason warned us, do not touch Richarlison. This is what he's, known for as a player. When he went down, Lee, any concern in your mind that once the referee gave that was going to follow through? Was you always confident VAR would overturn that, Lee?
Oh, sorry, that's me. Yeah, 100%. I thought he saved it, if I'm honest. I thought I saved it in real time. And then when I saw the first replay, I was like, yeah, no way. I mean, you can see that he get his hand around it and the ball changes direction. That, for me, was the key thing. you could see the ball changing direction. It was a fantastic save. I mean, I thought Hugo was outstanding in midweek, absolutely first class. And again, he didn't have to do anything tonight other than that. And when he come into play, he done very well.
Has he been our player of the season so far, Lloris?
Joe, I think Lloris has made some stupendous saves. I think Lloris, I say midweek. Don't worry, Nicky. We're coming to Talia in a second. Talia, they're waiting on your bated breath here for this incident on Richarlison. They're waiting for you to absolutely rip him a new one, which I'm sure is coming. I do think, Lloris, when you look at the course of the season, Lloris has played ever so well. And I say for him, he's one of those players that I will feel for, because if we get to the end of his contract, if he gets to the end of this contract and we don't renew that, and he's been here for such a long time and hasn't won a trophy, I'll be so gutted for him. And you feel if it isn't going to happen under Conte, when is it going to happen for any of these players? Even for us as fans, I question, when is it going to happen for us? Talia, let's come on to you for that incident. Was there any doubt in your mind when the referee pointed to the spot that was going to be reversed?
I mean, there's a lot of bias out there, and I think the refs are, there's no consistency. So I don't ever think they're 100% going to overturn it, because I know there's a lot of stupid decisions that we've all seen that do go against us and vice versa. However, Richarlison is a scumbag. I'm not joking. I tweeted it earlier. He is vile. He is one of the players I genuinely hate, because he is an actor. Oh my God. All he does the whole time is just exaggerate everything. He goes down like he's literally been slapped by a brick, and it's like air's touched him. He'll do anything. He is awful. So if Jason warned you, he's right. That is exactly what he does. He looks for everything. And yeah, fair play, you've got to do stuff. But that was a joke, right? We saw the replay. Like you said, it was blatantly obvious. Lloris got his glove to the ball. It changed the direction completely. He had something on it. That's not a pen. You can't give a pen when you literally see a glove touch the ball and it go, there is no debate. And yeah, I think Rafa, has got to just be defensive there, because that's not even bias from us. That's not a pen.
No, it's not. Just to touch on Lloris, I'll stick with you, Talia, because he only had one shot to save in that first half, and it came down in the first few minutes from Ben Godfrey's low effort. Looked to have conceded a penalty just after the hour mark. Again, as we said, overturned. But it was a quiet afternoon for him in general, Lloris. What have you made of Lloris this season? Because I say we touched upon their crucial saves during the week for us. Now with another new manager coming in, Paul Lloris has gone through so many at Spurs that,
I know.
He must get bored of saying the same, line. We're looking forward to working under this new coach. I mean, how many times he had to say that in a Spurs shirt, right? I
he's
wonder
like
for
us,
him,
though, isn't he? He's just ridden the wave with all of us, and he's experienced it, from a slightly different perspective. But he's been through it like all of we have. And I think it wasn't too long ago, actually, that I was on when it was like some form of anniversary for Lloris or something, and we spoke quite a lot about him. And I think, he's always been one of our unsung heroes to some degree, because, look, he is very accident prone and he does silly things and his distribution's not great. But ultimately, as like a stock shopper, he's done amazing things and we've all seen it. I think there was something also that I saw the other day that said, stats from an X amount of seasons ago, and he's by far the top. And I think he does generally go underrated. But I think, if we all put on paper, our defence is not great. It's been leaky for years, considering we haven't really changed it too much. Lloris has a lot to do with that, because he has saved so many things. And I think he's having a good season. I think it's difficult. We haven't had the best season ever. It's been, a bumpy ride with the manager change and the negativity and things. But I think he's always quite fair and he's honest in his interviews too. And I think we've spoken about it before, but he's also a lot more vocal than most people think he is from the back as our captain. And I think, again, he has all the experience. He tries to give it to people that want to listen to it. So no, I think of all the people, I don't like slagging off Lloris unless he does, proper poor thing that he does sometimes. But no, I think he's having a decent season. I wouldn't say he's our player of the season so far. I don't know who is, but I think
Kane. Is it Kane?
No, I think I said it was Lucas a few weeks ago. But
that's a point about Kane. Sorry, I've interrupted you. Just while we're on the Kane Player of the Year thing, because I love Kane so much, and again, I'm one of his biggest defenders, and I just wanted to make this point because we talk a lot about loyalty and whether he was loyal or not. I've gone right off topic a bit here. Sorry, Talia, but We didn't vote him Player of the Year when he clearly was Player of the Year about 3 or 4 times in a row. And he'll have seen that as well. So we asked for loyalty from him. We voted Vertonghen Player of the Year twice instead of Kane. Like, Vertonghen's a fantastic centre-back, but he was nowhere near as important to us as Kane. So I do think that kind of thing will have gotten back to him. And I think he must feel a little bit like, we're asking loyalty, absolute loyalty from him. And what have we done in return? We voted, Son a couple of times, Vertonghen a couple of times. It's ridiculous.
Sissoko, mate.
I think in general, like, a lot of our fans have underappreciated Kane for a long time, and I think that still goes on. And every game up until recently, where he really hasn't put in any effort, there's people that would either slag him off for doing something, or just not seeing the full picture, or doesn't understand his whole game and how we would track back and do bits and pieces. And if he wasn't scoring, his whole all-around game was so important to us. And there is, as a fan base, I think people never have understood that, or a lot of people haven't, which is a big part of that. But then on the other foot of that, I think also Kane knows he's one of our own. He knows he's the star of our team. Even if Sonny takes it sometimes, he knows he's the big shot. He knows that we need Kane to keep going. He knows that we're not going to bench him. There's all of those aspects too. So I think, there is kind of 2 angles to it. But either way, I mean, I'm sure, like you said, we'll go on to it, but he's just not here, is he? It's a shadow of himself. And in Mourinho's words of Dele's brother was playing for a bit, I think Charlie Kane has done something to him, and don't know where Kane is.
Yeah, the whole only.
No, I was going to say just to because obviously we're talking about Kane, so let's talk about Kane, right? I mean, the whole Kane
thing.
There
now. We can go there now.
Let's go there now, Rick. Let's go there now because I think it's important. I said, I think on the last show that I did, I think it is more than just a Man City piece. I think it is that England going to the Euro finals, getting knocked out on penalties, in the final and winning that. You look at Harry Maguire, you look at Jordan Sancho, you look at, Jordan Pickford even today in goal. You look at Luke Shaw, all of their form, Raheem Sterling. I don't think Sterling scored at all. They're set very, very similar situations. Like, who's come out of that England first 11, that starting first 11? I think Harrison's been injured, isn't he? Declan Rice, he's been brilliant for West Ham. Other than that, I'm thinking that, the players that have done absolutely outstanding. Kyle Walker, he's one of my favourite players anyway, so he's done well. But everyone else, John Stones has been injured or not been in and out of sides for club level. So I think it's that, as well as the Man City stuff as well, as well as the fact that he was treading water under Nuno. I think the thing that's got me the most with Kane, certainly today, is the not necessarily just the effort, but tactically he should be buzzing, right? He should be buzzing now. He's generally got a world-class manager to take us to a different, hopefully, and we're all Spurs fans, we all want this to happen. Some rival fans still in the comments, of course, but
as always,
of course, but I don't know why they listen to us, for God's sake. But look, the reality is,
it's a pretty good show.
Exactly. We're going to go to another level, right? And that's what we hope for. And so Kane should be buzzing. So, yes, it's a confidence thing now as well. I think this is the toughest part he's ever had in his career. So, everybody used to write him off before from rival clubs, didn't they? One season wonder. We won't. And he just kept going again, doing it again. We've never said that. We've never written him off. We've never, ever, as Spurs fans, we've lauded him. Now, the Spurs faithful are questioning him. They are talking. And like you said before, we're never giving him the player of the season and that sort of stuff. And everything that's gone before, he's just low on confidence. I'll try and give an example from today's game. There was a point where he was running with the ball at his feet, and I'm thinking, smash it, you go and have a go. And he didn't. He took an extra touch, and his head went down. He tried to find someone else, and you're thinking, he's just not right. He needs to score a couple of goals, maybe the international break. I don't even know who England have got actually in the next game. But hopefully a start. I think it's San Marino or a Minnow, should we say?
That'll be perfect for him, wouldn't it? I mean, that'll be perfect for him.
Score a hat-trick or something, just smash some goals in and go, right, I'm back.
Well, I think the effort, sorry to butt in as well. I think what a lot of people are frustrated about is no one is questioning his talent. We all know how talented he is, but I think he's always been so Spurs and always openly been that as well. And, my goal is to win for this team and win a trophy with this team. I want to be a one-team man as long as there is passion and commitment from this club, blah, blah, blah. He would always try. And I think even when we have played badly, you know, the reason he's got the stature that he has is because he's often been a shining light for us. Or even if he hasn't been, he's come out and said something sometimes, or just kind of is that figure. Whereas I think recently he isn't doing that. And the effort that we see isn't there. And I agree to a degree, it is a confidence thing. But I think he doesn't have that same flair that he had, and he doesn't seem to care anymore. And it's very like, oh, it's my social media team posting, and it's not, you know, the way that I feel, or an interview, it's not as genuine. It doesn't feel the same. And that is what's upsetting. And to your point, Lee, what you just said too, I think, no disrespect to Nuno, but they were disappointed with Nuno's appointment, just as most of us were, because he was the 7th choice. And that is difficult for
100%.
any player, let alone one of the best strikers in the world, to be like, you know, we're playing in the Champions League. Now we're in the Conference League playing Farmers, and Nuno, an ex-reject from Wolves, is my manager. Like, again, no disrespect, but that's not motivating for a player like Kane, who wants to win, wants to be the best.
And wants to improve, Talia, as well. Just to interact.
Wants
people at the top of their game, they want to improve. Like, they want to get outside their comfort zone and learn and go again and be. That's what they want. That's what they need. You can't do that if you're not getting that from your manager or the players around you, right?
And that's a bit of what Mourinho brought to Kane's game, and was that kind of catalyst in, you're amazing, you're going to be the best, I'm going to make you the best. That is what he had that Nuno obviously didn't have, and we would assume Conte does have that. So I think for us, or again, back to the disappointment side, in the last 2 games, what we've seen, we thought Kane would be like, I'm running for every ball, I want to be the best, I want to prove my point. He didn't score on Thursday. I know one was like an own goal kind of scored, but like, he had no Kane proper clear-cut chances. Today, nothing. It doesn't feel the same. And I thought we would see more from him in a game like today. And I know it is early, but I think for me, that's what feels strange. Like, it does take time, but I think
I'd even sound.
You know.
I totally agree with your saying. I'll let you come back on what I'm going to say here. I mean, Kane was also a player that would also create a chance out of nothing himself.
Yeah.
That's what's also worrying me. That,
you know, missing exactly that. You know,
exactly what you're saying. He would not trust those around him, so he'd take the ball himself and create the chances. Where we're not even seeing that at the moment from Kane.
But I think that is why we're so lackluster in general, because people, you know, we were a team in that sense, and although people didn't trust the person to their right or their left, they would try and do what they can do to make us score or do better. And that is why people like Sonny and Kane have led so much, because sometimes they just have to run for everyone because they don't think that X is going to do it for them. So they just kind of do it. Kane's not interested. He's not winning any headers. He's like, you know, proper scared of everything. He's just like, oh, it almost feels like I don't want to get injured because I can get my move in Jan if I keep being shit. And that is a shame. Yeah. And I don't know if that's true.
But on Thursday, he was winning his headers. When we went down to 10 men for that 20-minute period or whatever, I thought it was outstanding up front. Proper old school centre forward, backing in, winning the headers, getting back to where he was. And actually, I wondered whether or not, I can't remember who I asked, one of the other guests that we had on a few weeks ago, Rick. And I said, in a dressing room, it was Dean Austin when we had Dean on. And I said, like, in a dressing room, when somebody's kind of so publicly wanted to leave, does that give a fraction in the dressing room? Like, you got Sonny, for example, signing a new 4-year contract, sticking his paper down, saying, I want to win trophies for this club, I love this club, I believe in this club. And then you got his best mate, for example, like up front, he's going, I want to leave, basically. Is there a division?
It's stale, but our dressing room is so stale anyway. And I think that does make it so much worse, because they also, do you remember there was, and you know, we'll never know how much it was true, but when he didn't show up for training, the players were liking stuff about him.
Well, there's Dyer. I mean,
and Dyer was definitely doing it. I think Sonny even did it.
Yeah, I think we also have to add, and you know, what's interesting is, you know, Højbjerg. Now, I know we are going to come to Højbjerg in a second, because again, Højbjerg's form has taken a bit of a dip in, and there's been lots of people saying if he's even good enough anymore for Spurs, which is the irony of Spurs right now. A player that was so loved, you know, last season is now being questioned to whether he's even good enough to be at the club. But I found Højbjerg's interview very poignant after the United game, where he said, you know, every player needs to show commitment and fight. And, you know, we know Kane was booed off, you know, by our own fans in that United defeat. I thought that was very interesting.
It was, but what? Just quickly on that, obviously bring Andrew in as well, get Andrew's views. But what I wanted to say just on that Kane thing is I did think, maybe there's that fraction there and what we've been talking about. But when he scored, against Newcastle, the celebration,
every player was over there.
Player went up there, were patting his head, they were it wasn't just a well done, Harry scored. It was a proper see fella, I know you can do it. You crack on, and you could see, and that's not fake. In that emotion of scoring and stuff, that's not fake. That is real emotion coming out and saying, you know, like when everyone pats them on the head and they jump and it was a proper. We know you've been struggling.
They were pleased for him. They were pleased for him. Yeah, they were pleased for him. Exactly. Andrew, let's bring you in because on Kane, look, he didn't get much change out of that Everton's backline early on, but you know, he did play his part with some good play to set his teammates free. I mean, the concern again is belly to sniff before the restart. I want you to come back, Andrew, because we had some questions here that I want you to answer. So I'm going to list them off here. John Berry says, what the hell has happened to Kane? His movement is non-existent. His pace and power has vanished. How do we get him scoring again? Matt Page at 2000 says, anyone else thinking Kane might be done with us? Shadow of his former self. Martin Sveberg, and this is the interesting one here. Harry should be benched. I think he shouldn't be in the national team either with his stone cold, better for all parties attitude. Leave him at home with Conte for a couple of weeks. Now, you know, everyone's saying he should be benched. We've got one other striker in the club, and that's Dane Scarlett. And I don't know if it's right to put all that pressure on Dane Scarlett, who's a young kid who, for me, I know he can't because of the restrictions. He should be going out, getting some experience on loan, getting to know the game, play the game with men in the Championship, League One, League Two. We should not be in a position that we've only got one striker at the football club. Yes, that comes down on ENIC, and we know that, of course. What do we do with Kane generally? What's your take on it?
Yeah, it's really complicated, isn't it? I don't take the view that he's not trying. I was at that Man United game, and there are things you can see obviously when you're at the game that you can't see on TV. There were so many times he was chasing down lost balls, ones he knew he wouldn't get, but he wanted to show the fans, I felt, that he was still trying. I think it can be very easy for us as fans sometimes to look at players and say, oh, he doesn't look like he's got the right attitude for me. I think Dele Alli is an example. Obviously, it didn't help what Jose said about him one time, but I think whenever I've seen him play, particularly when I've been at games, he's an incredibly hard worker in terms of running. He often has the stats as the biggest runner of the team, and Harry as well. I mean, the thing is, as we know, he has had those injuries. It's one ankle after another after an ankle. You know, he must have like 10 ankles that are all injured or something. He's just injured all, and he is a lot frailer than he was. He doesn't always win those headers, and I thought about that today with Conte, because he's used to Lukaku. He's used to these big guys who are going to hold the ball up in that way and go in for those battling, crunching headers. And Kane hasn't been that player for a few years. With Mourinho, it was a very, very particular set of tactics where we were defending so deep that if the ball got to Kane, then Son was away. Just from a Kane, you know, that was a very, very particular way of playing that I don't think we want to go back to, and we're not going to go back to. So Conte's now got this job of trying to get the best out of Kane. It's going to take some time. He had some mentality problems. Lee made a fantastic point I hadn't thought about the England team. I don't think he's down to tools. It's just like you can't turn form on and off like a tap. It's going to take him some time to get back into it. And that's the thing with the loyalty that I was talking about before. We expected it from him. He's still there, whether he wanted to be or not. It's time for us as fans to show some loyalty to a player who I think has been the best player since I'm 32. No one's come close to him in terms of how good he's been.
Same as me, Andrew. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, good age.
Very fair. Yeah.
I can't agree because I'm not 32, but I do agree on your points.
I wish I wasn't going to be 32 in a couple of days, but I am going to be 32. Maria on the screen there says, let us not forget he wanted to go City to win stuff, but he had those chances with us and didn't turn up. No player is bigger than the team. We definitely echo those thoughts as well. Guys, let's talk about PM and Højbjerg, because, again, a player that at the moment, I mean, Talia's face there says it all. So we're going to come on to her first, whether she wants that or not. I don't know, but it was an incident with Højbjerg where there was a red card for Mason Holgate for a foul on Højbjerg. Now, the referee initially handed him a yellow card before going to the screen to check. So that's quite mad. And listen, I know referees have a really tough job, and I know it's in the moment these things happen, but I'm very concerned that a referee had to go to a screen to watch that to be overturned. Now, again, maybe he didn't see it at first hand, but it was such a horrendous tackle, you know, really, really bad. You know, we're lucky that he hasn't come off anything worse than, you know, it appears he could have done, because it was a real bad tackle. I mean, the only shame probably was that it happened so late in the game where Spurs couldn't really take advantage of the 10 men. But Højbjerg, where are you on it for you, Talia? Getting a lot of criticism at the moment. Is his position under threat now with Antonio Conte as a new Spurs head coach?
I'm immediately no, because I don't know who we get, but I would be very surprised. Hopefully Conte will be here. I'll be very surprised if he was in our midfield next season. I think we have seen quite a big decline in him. I think, but
How
I don't
has it happened so quickly, Talia? Very quickly. How was it? This guy last season, if you spoke to every Spurs fan, I would say the first 15 to 20 games, everybody was raving about him. Then we had the two penalty decisions back to back where he conceded 2 penalties. And forgive me, I think it was Leeds and I think Everton, 2 really bad penalties. And then from then, it was almost a feeling that, he's not getting enough rotation. He looks knackered. He looks tired. He's doing 3 or 4 people's jobs at once, which I've always said.
Yeah.
How has it come to a point where we're thinking he's not good enough for the club?
I mean, it's classic Spurs, though, isn't it? As soon as something happens, it seems to spiral. But I don't know if that's because he's necessarily got worse or we overhyped him at the beginning. I think it could be a bit of an element of both of those things. But I also think it could be that maybe he is just overworked. I think he played the most minutes in the league last season. He plays for Denmark every single game too. And again, he's still straight back in the lineup. And is that too much for someone to do? He never gets subbed and he does play and he does run. I think from a talent point of view, we've just seen a different side to him, and the clumsiness that we're seeing is maybe because he's tired and he hasn't been rested, etc. I think it's a difficult role to fill, and I think we expect quite a lot and we want someone that does everything. And I think to a degree he tries to be that person, but he's not talented enough to be that person. And I think that is the weird kind of holistic view that we all have, is that, he tries to do his best for the team. He's Viking, whatever. He's really captainy. He's very forward. I want to do my best. I want to do everything. He'll see it. He'll try do it. But actually he ends up losing the ball. Or he doesn't get back in time or doesn't do those things. And it's just because, it's not working. I don't know if that's his fault, the other people around him fault because he's doing everyone else's job, or just, like I said, because he's tired. I don't know. I think Ndombele should have been on for Højbjerg for me today from, quite a lot earlier than Ndombele came on. It's tough, but I think he's an incredible pro footballer, as in athlete, his mindset is amazing, physicality, etc. But I don't think he should be playing every game. He's not good enough to be in a top 6 side. I don't think. I think Southampton fans, when we bought him, were like, he's shit, blah, blah, blah. And we were like, wait, he's unreal. What do you mean? And I think it's now just getting to that weird midpoint. And it's like, did we overhype him? Is he good? Is he not? Do we need something else? Do we just need to rotate and have him to do his actual role and someone else to complement that?
Yeah,
it's difficult.
It is difficult. I mean, a friend of the show there, Darren Altman, who will be on the Last One Spurs, I'm sure, in the near future, says Pierre, an incredible player, aggressive forward thinking, able to switch play. Where is this coming from? Where is this coming from? It's interesting because
I'll be honest with you. I agree. I agree with Darren. I'll be honest with you. I agree with Darren. I think that the key thing that has changed this season from last season is his midfield partner in Oliver Skipp. We didn't have Oliver Skipp last year. Now, we're going to get onto Skippy later, and everyone will praise him and say he's been really good and, he's developing and he's a kid and this, that, and the other. Højbjerg's 24, right? So all of a sudden, Højbjerg's not very good. He's not forward thinking. The guy's a dustman. Crackers is obviously one of our own. He described him as a dustman. So what he does is he's a dustman. How many tackles do you think Pierre-Emile Højbjerg has made in the Premier League this season? How many do you think? 33. Where do you think he is in the league against every other tackling player in the league?
I would say it's quite.
He's fucking number one. Excuse my language. He's number one. He's top in the Premier League. He's top 3 in the most passes in the Premier League, and he's tackled more than any other player in the Premier League. It's incredible. So I think the work that he's doing is going unnoticed because we expect that work of him because he's done it last season. He's a dustman. So I always go back to Nicky Butt back in the day at Manchester United. He never got praise because he was just a dustman. And then that's what Højbjerg does. He's not in the side to go forward, marauding runs, take people on, shoot and score. He's not in the side to go and put lung busting run and then put a through ball together or put a cross in. He's not an assist maker and he's not a goal scorer. So therefore, but what he's there to do is break up play, bring the ball back, turnovers, and get the ball rolling again. And the difference between Højbjerg this season to last season is his midfield partner. Last season, his midfield partner in the main, you could argue this obviously, was Ndombele. And what Ndombele would do is he would be the one out of that midfield partnership to go forward and put the ball through or whatever it might be the more creative. Whereas this season, he's got Skip next to him, and Skip is definitely not that player. Skip is also a dustman as well. Yeah. So at the moment, we've got 2 dustmen. So I don't want to have a pop at Højbjerg because I like the fella. I think I like his passion a lot.
I love his passion. Love his passion.
To give it some balance, and the points I did agree with Talia and Craig that you just put up on the screen as well, is a lot of Southampton fans didn't rate him either.
They weren't that. They weren't. Let's be honest about it. Southampton fans, they weren't that fussed about losing him. A lot of them weren't that fussed. You know. Yeah. So I don't know. I just feel from a balance perspective, I just think that you can't be number 1 in tackles in the Premier League and not be very good. And I apologise for my language. I used the F word earlier, so forgive me for that. But you know, you've got to have some sort of balance on there. The biggest thing that's changed, not only the coach, right? So let's be honest about that. So Nuno, but the biggest thing that changes is his midfield partner, and they're doing the same job. That's the bit where that creativity. And like I said earlier, Matic and Kante together in the middle of the park for Chelsea, they won the title and they mashed the title that year against us.
Who was the other? Was there an attacking midfielder they had with Matic and Kante?
They were bringing the
right. Well, that's what we didn't have today.
No, exactly.
We've got that on the bench. If they're good enough or not, I'm sure we'll get into it. And Ndombele, Lo Celso, Adeli to come in and fill that Fabregas type role. You think of a Lampard as well. You know, Lampard would sit in there as number 8. You know, that Lampard playing for Chelsea, he was that guy that would run late into the box, wouldn't he? And he'd score the goals, highest scoring midfielder, highest goal scorer for Chelsea in their history, etc., etc. We had that in Dele Alli, and then that's just completely gone from his game. So the creativity side of the game in midfield for sure needs to improve. But unfortunately, that's not Højbjerg's job, and that's not his fault.
No, it's not. I agree. Let's come on to Andrew on this point, because Andrew, on the screen there, Joey says Højbjerg turned up in a side that lacked fight and desire, and he showed that. So I think fans held on to that. Sadly, I think he lacks the ability. Do you know what's funny? I mean, on this screen here, we've seen hundreds and hundreds of comments, and it is you know, as you see here, them coming through right now. There's so many that are, you know, for and against Højbjerg, and, you know, as fans, you know, players do always divide opinion. You know, that on there, Stefan Boyd says, forget stats, Lee. He gives away the ball too much. And again, people look too much into stats, but Lee can only read out what he sees there. And I think it'll be interesting to see over the course of the season where Højbjerg does end up for Spurs, because Conte suffers no falls, and passion will only get you so far. And I have to make that point. You know, passion is great to have, but ability is above and beyond the most important thing, right? Because you need the ability to be able to forward in a team, focus in a team to take us forward. So, yeah, Højbjerg, that debate will rumble on. We're not all going to agree on that.
Just quickly to bring in Andrew and Talia and Rick and you on this point as well. So, say for example, we went out and bought, and I don't know what the names are. There'd be loads of names.
I think Basuma's probably Basuma. I think Basuma is one of the names that they would see as a like-for-like replacement.
So we go and get Basuma. Who are you dropping? Højbjerg and Skip? Is that what we're saying? We're saying that we're going to bring in a Basuma.
You'd be dropping him. I think you'd be dropping at least one of those, wouldn't you? You'd be dropping at least.
Well, that's what I'm asking. So who do you drop? Do you keep Skip, or do you?
I think I would personally keep Skip. I think Skip's a much more forward-thinking player from what I've seen. Personally, at the moment, I think Skip is playing that well. Again, go on, Talia.
And go on. I was going to say, I think, you know, that is maybe not so much a debate, and it potentially goes back to what I'm saying is that he's doing every shift, and that if he played slightly less, and we had that level of rotation, and I know Conte is not a rotation man. He is, this is my 11 and I will not replace it, but it's difficult to play every game and have such a big role. And if we did replace one of those players and have that, I think that would potentially benefit him. And I think, you know, he will appreciate his passion and he will appreciate that he will go in and is not scared of a challenge and is, quite hard in that aspect. And I think, that does get you so far. And I do think we need that. We're not a very physical team. We've got a lot of people that are scared of a lot of things, which is why he stands out to a lot of us. But I think,
like getting a second striker, isn't it, Talia? Like getting a second striker.
It's all a luxury.
What's one of them? We've not had one of them for a while. What's that again?
We have got Papametassar, no? I mean, he's coming in, whether or not we can call him back in January.
It's a very good point. And I think he's seen more in the attacking model of, like, say, Dele Alli in the first couple of seasons. But again, interesting. Amy Lauren, who's actually due on the show with us very soon, Amy, loves skip, great feet, loves a forward pass. I see Lee on the decks there, but... looking forward to having Amy with us very, very soon. Let's talk about then his midfield partner, Oliver Skipp, because he will miss Spurs' games upcoming against Leeds United after being booked. Everton actually wanted that penalty towards the end of that first half after his challenge on Gray, but their claims were waved away. He did put himself up about, looked to frustrate Everton at times, and did that later on with a fine block to deny Gordon, made a couple of impressive runs through that midfield in the closing stages as he looked to help Spurs to try and get a victory. In the end, it was just a point. Again with Skipp, comments I see today, Tommy there says he's man of the match. Overall with Skipp, it's interesting because there's a lot of love for him out there. And I think if you're looking at the moment in terms of players that are, I would say, almost nailed on to start at Tottenham, I think fans, from what I can gauge at the moment, and I might be wrong here, I think Skipp is one of the mainstays in the team. Andrew, for you, how important is Oliver Skipp for this team? Is he for you now one of the first names on this team sheet? And do you think Conte will see it like that as well?
Yeah. No, I think absolutely. I was livid when Jose put him out on loan last year, and he had such a phenomenal season with Norwich. And I guess it's like a chicken or egg situation because people will say, well, he needed that year of Norwich to get as good as he is. I thought, well, he could have played for Spurs a decent amount. And I don't think it's necessarily. I think it's a very Spurs unambitious way of thinking sometimes when we talk about, Skipp or Højbjerg or something like that, because they don't have to play every game together. You play 50 games in a season, sometimes more. So to have both of them, I think, is brilliant. And they can play together, as Lee was saying, if you've got a creative person ahead of them. So I just think all this talk about Højbjerg, for example, I mean, how frustrating must it be to be Højbjerg and Skipp and put in tackle after tackle, Højbjerg, the leading tackler in the league, and then there's no movement in front of you. There's something wrong with the movement at the moment in front. It was, like I said, it was a lot easier when it was with Jose, and we had that, those straight lines everyone ran in with those counter-attacks. It's just that you only had 2 of those a game, and if Son scored from 30 yards, we'd win. If he didn't, we wouldn't win. But, so I think it's very easy to criticise these players, and as fans, we become a bit tribal when we're angry that we lost and we want to go, Skipp, Højbjerg. They're both phenomenal players, I think. I think they're 2 of the best central midfielders, well, certainly since Dembele. I think we finally got that okay. The problem, I think, is Lo Celso, who's brilliant for Argentina, and Ndombele, who I think Ndombele, I don't know if you guys agree with this, I thought he was better when he was less fit. He's now got fitter. He can last the whole game, right? And he doesn't really do anything. When he was sort of walking around, do you remember we had all those videos of him trying to chase players, couldn't get near them?
You prefer when he's knackered for 20 minutes?
Yeah.
And just
yeah. Do you remember he had that sort of...
he's training too much.
He's training too much. He had that sort of funny gait, which he doesn't have anymore, and it was funny to watch him. He was always out of breath, and then he'd get the ball, and suddenly, it's not just his skills with the ball. He'd play someone through that you didn't even see the run as a fan, and he played his beautiful balls through. He doesn't really do that anymore. He just he's fit and he runs around. I don't know. He was more eccentric as a player, more flamboyant when he was less fit. But that's the issue for me at the moment. Is that maybe instead of Lucas, I would have had someone just in front of Ndombele, in front of the 2 that we've just been talking about, Skipp and Højbjerg, who can play. And unfortunately for Lo Celso, I don't know why it's not happening. He's the biggest mystery for me at the moment because he clearly has the talent.
John, we was going to go for a break, but let's actually do Lo Celso. Let's actually sort Lo Celso out now in terms of discussing his performance. I say sort him out, not quite literally. We're not going to go sort him out around his place. We're actually going to discuss him. Lee, let's come to you because he was so nearly a late winner for Spurs, but his brilliant curling free kick. It wasn't a free kick, but brilliant curling effort. Hit the post about 25 yards out. And, in that moment, you're looking, I think, Lee, at a moment to change a course of a player's career at Spurs. And I think that could have been it for Lo Celso. And I'll tell you why. I think there's that feeling at the moment that he's not the same player when he pulls on an Argentina shirt to the one that we see at Tottenham. I tell you what, Messi thinks Lo Celso's amazing. And I think if you ask many Spurs fans, we just do not know what Lo Celso does. I mean, on our comments here, so I'm just going to read some of these out. Z-Man, who's a friend of the show, says, need help understanding what Lo Celso actually does. Personally, think Ndombele offers more and definitely wouldn't have taken off Lucas. I've got so many I could read out. But yeah, I mean, Lo Celso at the moment, there's no one actually really knows what he can do. And, Stuart on the screen here, I've got to say, thoughts on that final corner from Lo Celso. And I've seen, Talia, I can see your face there. We've seen, actually, this kind of going around now on Twitter, this 3-second video of Lo Celso's corner. And, it does get worse every time you see it. It really does. I mean, Lee, let's come to you first, and then we'll go to Talia. Lo Celso, Lee, what is it going to happen here? Will it ever happen, his career at Tottenham?
I just don't know. I don't know what to say on the guy. I mean, he comes on, he does nothing for the first, I think he was on the pitch for 7 minutes. I didn't even hear his name. And then he a bit of, drops the shoulder, gets himself into a position, cracks one, hits the post, outstanding effort. And you're thinking, here we go. I mean, the game changed just when we hit the post. All of a sudden, it's like we woke up and we went, oh, right, maybe if we have some shots, we might be able to do something. And
we might just score a goal.
It doesn't even count because it the post. It wasn't even on target. It didn't count.
You could argue that is the target, because I remember Steven Gerrard used to say he would aim. He always taught younger people as well to aim for the posts, and then because you're never going to hit the post, you might just score. Well, so let's just say that was on target.
Yeah, so we feel better. I think the target's the back of the net, right?
Yeah, of course.
I'm going to say, guys, if we're now counting, hitting the posters on target, what's going on with this podcast?
But yeah, we're not. Look, I think the thing is about Lo Celso, to come back to him. I mean, that corner is woeful. The thing is about corners in Tottenham. I just can't remember when we had someone. We were talking about this on the WhatsApp group, right? I can't remember the last time we had somebody that could whip the ball in from either side and, put people under pressure. Look at West Ham today, who's just beat Liverpool. We've done a phenomenal job. I think they've scored 22 goals in the Premier League from set pieces this year. Yep. And you can turn around and say, well, Sam Allardyce or, whatever.
No, but they look really impressive.
Even if we did 25% of them goals and stuck it in the Spurs team, all of a sudden we're taking, 5 or 6 goals from set pieces. What we do is we're woeful at taking set pieces and we're woeful at defending them. So, you look at them two things and you think, blimey, like, what's going on? You look at the likes of players that used to take corners and free kicks down the years, David Ginola, Darren Anderton, you look at Heung-min Son now, Christian Eriksen, Lo Celso, people that be able to whip balls in. Who takes our free kicks now? You see Trent Alexander-Arnold earlier, outstanding free kick. I don't know if anyone's seen it.
No, it was a great free kick. Yeah.
And you think to yourself, who would do that in the Tottenham shirt? Like, who is going to do that stuff? And Lo Celso must have the talent. Like you say, he puts on an Argentinian jersey, and he's absolutely outstanding.
Well, this is what
America, and he turns into a Tottenham shirt, and I don't know. I just don't think I don't know. I actually don't know.
I mean, Talia, let's come over to you. He was on the pitch. We'll give him his due. He was on the pitch for 19 minutes today, right? So, in those 19 minutes, I could just see Spurs fans on Twitter getting more and more aggravated and frustrated by every minute he was on the pitch. What will it take, Talia, to change the tide on Lo Celso? Will it happen for him at Spurs? I just get the feeling, the likes of Ndombele, Lo Celso, any top club, City, Liverpool, United, Chelsea, they would never give a player 3 to 4 years. But at Tottenham, you seem to get that these days.
I know. I tell you, I think actually one of the core things that this goes down to is it was essentially Lo Celso, Bruno Fernandes, and we ended up with Lo Celso.
Don't do this to us. Don't do this to us.
No, but I generally
not
think
again. Not again.
The core like annoyance or frustration with all of us that
we know what
him instead. And he is so much worse of a player that we can't get over that. And like that is what is so hard about him.
There's got to be something in there. There has to be something in there.
The thing is, I think we see glimpses of things, but what is he? Like no one knows what he is. That is the problem. Like, and he'll come on. He's even more inconsistent than Lamela. I'm not even joking. At least Lamela would come on and you would know. No, he's not the best footballer, but he would give everything to the game, run like a lunatic, hit people, get a yellow, blah, blah, blah. But, like, you knew what he was. Lo Celso, every single game is like a different human being. Like, who is he? Like, that corner today, I can't even tell you how
There's no words. There's no
like
words. Yeah.
there isn't any words. And
No.
going back to what Lee said, I've said it 100 times. I don't understand how with 4 managers in the last however many years, we do not have people in this team that can take set pieces. They don't exist. I don't know what we do in training.
What there's one thing I can promise you. Under Conte, that will change because
why are they training? Why, like
we said that with Mourinho.
Why are they not coaching? Why are they not staying behind after school and doing some prep and doing some homework? School's finished, right? 2 hours of training sessions. You paid millions of quid. Stay behind. Put them in top bins. Put them in top bins. Put them in top bins. Like we all do when we were when we were kids. When we wanted to do it in the yard or whatever. Generally, I'm serious when I say this. Why are they not doing that? You know, the music to my ears this week was when he kept him in the 90 minutes over the press conference.
Overrunning for the press conference.
Him in a training session. It's putting a corner in, Talia, isn't it? It's putting a ball in.
For me, it's so frustrating that so many games are won on set pieces.
Yep.
So many. And that
West
is literally
Ham,
the revival of West Ham and so many other teams. Every single time another team has a set piece, I shit ourselves because we can't defend set pieces because we don't have a clue what to do with them. And the other way around, we can't take them. We have a free kick. Oh, who cares? Nothing's going to happen anyway. Corner. Shame we're not threatening. Like, it's completely wrong in all aspects, and that is a genuine fact. There's
the
a
analysis
when we score. Like
the analysis the other day, right, on M&F about Everton and Rafa Benitez and zonal marking. It was absolutely superb. And Jamie Carragher, he's worked for and played under Rafa Benitez. The zonal marking thing has always been controversial, but he sets them up in zonal marking. And today, they lost 3 games on a spin. They conceded a load of goals. And they're set up in zonal marking and they're nervous and the crowd's a bit nervous and so on and so forth. And what do? Hit the front man. What do? We didn't even do anything. We passed to the bloke.
We don't play to team strengths ever. We never do it.
No, I must bring Andrew in. Andrew, very quickly, we've got so much to discuss. We're going to go for a break in a second. But before we do, Andrew, thoughts on Lo Celso very quickly. Will he make it in a Spurs shirt?
Yes, I think Conte will turn him round. He'll play like he does for Argentina. He's got to. Maybe he has to play week in, week out. The first season he was at Spurs, he did enough for us to buy him because he was only on loan, wasn't he? And then we bought him at the end of the season. He was quite good.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
so that was it. Yeah, he'll get better.
That's a great
maybe.
Point. I totally agree, guys. We're going to go for our final break of the show. When we return, we'll be discussing Spurs. Now, obviously, adopting to a new 3-5-2, those flying fullbacks. Touching on Heung-min Son's form, and then, like we say, what the players will be doing during this international break, what Conte's got to come. For our watching audience on YouTube, there's nearly over 700 of you watching us live. Thank you ever so much. I say Sunday evening on a 0-0, to have that kind of support, like I say, blows our mind. Thank you so much for, like I say, watching us live. Because I say it's not always easy. And like I say, we've got great guests on, talking us through Tottenham as always, coaching us through the story. Shame we can't coach the set pieces, but listen, who knows? If you're a set piece specialist out there, let us know. We'll pass you along to the club. Not that we work for them at all, not that they listen to us, but who knows what we can do. Guys, yeah, we'll try. Let's discuss, guys, moving on to our defence, because I think today, that was one of the more positive aspects, and I think we have to touch upon that. And like Jordan says, I can confirm it is free therapy over here, 100%. And Nikki says, well, get downloading, top 17, here we come. We want that top 1 to keep going on. Luke's just found us recently, enjoying the content. Luke, we love you for that. Thank you so much. Christian Romero. Let's talk about Christian Romero. Let's come to you, Andrew, to start, because he made a couple of really good blocks in and around his own box in that first half. Most notably that one that stopped Amari Gray testing Lloris early on. Bit of an altercation with Richarlison just after the hour mark. That saw him pick up a yellow, but I think secretly we all absolutely love that of Romero. We absolutely love that kind of aggression in his game, don't we? And I think under Conte, that's just going to become even more and more. And I think, that's probably the perfect centre-back to come under Conte. Thoughts on Romero? Is he growing game by game for you now, Andrew?
Yeah, I think he's going to be, and I've been quite optimistic actually today. I've just realised, because I keep saying, they're going to be brilliant. I think he's going to be one of the best centre-backs we've had in years and years. I really do. I lived in Argentina for 7 years, and my partner, she's from Buenos Aires, and they're all talking about him. Everyone in Argentina is just going on about him. His name means rosemary or something, which it's not the same sort of aggressive nature he has. But then Lamela, it wasn't talked about enough, by the way, that Lamela's name was extremely rude. His name means, well, it's not, you can say it, it means lick her, and the her is again, the connotations of that is genital her.
Where is this podcast going?
No, I know, but it's just that people.
Deep wondrous places.
Yes, Lamella. Yes, Lamella.
Yeah, it's Lamella. It wasn't spoken about enough.
There'll be fans saying, finally, he's done something. There'll be saying, Miss Lamella. Miss Lamella.
Yeah. And the other thing, while I'm sorting out Spanish, right, it's because the commentators get it so wrong and it drives me mad. It's Reguilón. Because I'm hearing Region, I'm hearing Region, all these things. So commentators listening, Reguilón. Regulon.
I've got to remember that in a couple minutes time now. So watch me put it in a couple minutes now.
We call him Reggie. So
Reggae. It's just Reggae.
Reggae.
That'll do as well.
I don't know if you know it's on this podcast, but any player's name that is difficult to pronounce, what you get from Lee is Stevie for Bergwijn. Give us some of the other ones Lee you've had in the past for some of these confusing players. Reggie.
The best ones are Cracker's dad when he comes out with Bergwijns and all that sort of stuff.
Stephen Bodkins.
But yeah, Romero's going to be top. I've never seen a player. Have you guys seen a player who can get forward and intercept the way he does in front of his man? And I don't know if you noticed Dyer doing that. He was trying to do it today because he's obviously watched Romero do it all week in training or the last few weeks, and he couldn't quite do it because it's such a difficult talent to have. So the way he does that, I think I haven't seen many centre-backs do that, and I think he can transform Spurs. If we build around him, and maybe Ben Davies and Dyer aren't quite there, maybe that's why we weren't attacking that much. Maybe Conte's aware of that, and it's just like, okay, we need to sort that defence out, because that, if you're looking at a place to improve, it's probably either side of Romero, isn't it?
I totally agree on that, and it's a good point you make there. Let's discuss that. Talia's come around to you. Eric Dyer. I don't just deliberately use Talia, by the way. I don't pick out players for you just to moan about them, just so you know this. But you know what's coming. He was the man in the middle of that back three. He remained strong at the back, to be fair, up against Richarlison. Might have had a different task on his hands altogether had that, I think, Dominic Calvert-Lewin playing. But just on Dyer, is there hope yet under another manager that he's going to discover Dyer's true potential? Or do you think in time, Conte is just going to realise that he's not up to the task because of the amount of individual errors that we've seen in his game over the past 18 to 24 months since he decided he's now a centre-back, not a central defensive midfielder?
I don't see how Conte would give him any more chances than Mourinho. Mourinho was such an advocate for Dyer, whether we did or did not agree with said opinion. I think Conte knows that, our centre-back selection is probably not great. They are not the centre-backs that should be part of a top six side, and not the centre-backs that, are going to be part of some of the best defences in Europe like we actually once were. They are not that. I think he looks better. He's made less mistakes, and, we're not always so negative. I think today, again, granted, not huge amounts to do, but there wasn't really any awfully shaky moments that we've seen in the past. We kept a clean sheet. Thursday, we did concede 2 goals, but, again, it wasn't horrendous. But I don't think Conte will look at Dyer and say, he's not replaceable. Of course he's replaceable. He's Eric Dyer. Again, we appreciate the servancy. He does love Spurs. He's such a nice guy. He's not lovely, good enough for Tottenham. I'll never insult him. I generally really like him, but he's not talented enough to play football in the way that Conte wants to play. And I'm sure that him and Davis are filling a role that there are no current, people that fill the slots for. And that's no disrespect. We've said it time and time again. And it is firing shots, but it also is true. These are the players that have been through so many managers, and we've never had this massive rebuild where we get rid of the shit. We thought it was happened. It still hasn't really happened. It's slowly, grated off the edge, but those players will be gone. And they're no way going to be permanent people in the starting 11 in a Premier League game gone January, let alone the summer. I would be very surprised. Yeah,
well, let's discuss. Again, listen, Talia, there's so much love for you in the comments here whenever you come on the show. It's like, you almost like you read people's minds at times. Lee, let's come on to you and discuss that other centre-back today, that left-sided centre-back, a guy that we always laugh and joke 6 out of 10. I know that's for some significantly dropping. Gentle Ben, of course. He kept his place on that left of a 3-man defence, dealt well with Anthony Gordon as the Everton man looked to run at him and cause him problems, but he did push up field on a couple of occasions and saw a shot go wide of the target. Same question to you, really. Conte coming in, Ben Davies. Is there a chance that you revive Ben Davies' career at Spurs, or over time do you expect Ben to be one of the players to be moved on in the upcoming transfer windows.
Do you know what? You know this, Rick, anyway, because I put it on the WhatsApp group. Both me and the Major said that it'll probably be Ben Davies that gets revived under Conte. He will do it for some of the players. Like there will be, I think Jay said there'll be players that we like that won't get revived, and there'll be players that we don't necessarily not like, but think that we should move on, but actually get revived. Look, we did Victor Moses. But I do think, that is the position that we struggle with in our defence, right? Oh, thanks, Mark. But, the
reminder.
For happy days. Look, the reality is that Ben Davies is the only genuine left-sided player that can play as a centre-back in our entire squad. Unless John from the Lily White Rose tells me that is, super kid coming through the academy. Even Tanganga, who, by the way, I really like Tanganga. I think he's been very, very good for us. Only young. I like his aggression. All the things that we've just said about Romero, I like in Tanganga as well. And he's one of our own. But he's right-footed. Romero, right-footed. Sanchez, right-footed. Dyer, right-footed. And it makes a huge difference. And we know for a fact it makes a huge difference because for years we had the best defence. And we had Vertonghen, genuine left footer, and Toby Alderweireld, who had a telepathy between the two of them, didn't they? To be fair, so I do think that if we go in, it's a big if, right, with this board, of course, but I think that they have backed Antonio Conte. I don't think Conte would have come if there wasn't money to spend, right? So, given that's the fact, if that is a fact, we don't know yet, but hopefully it will be. If we go out and buy another centre back, I think it will be a left-footed centre back. I think that you need to have some balance. You look at the likes of.
I think Skriniar again. That name is popped up again.
But he's not left-footed either. He is not a genuine left-footed centre back. So look at somebody like Pau Torres. Over at Villarreal, genuine Spanish centre back.
Yeah, well, I must have reportedly rejected us in the summer, but again, maybe Conte coming in that changes.
But again, Koundé as well over at Seville, but again, he's not left-footed either. So we can bring these better centre backs coming into the football club. Yeah. But my question would be, and look, it'd be over to Conte, but do we think we need a genuine left-footed? I personally do. I don't think that. Otherwise, he'd be playing Sanchez, Romero, and Dyer, or Rodon would be getting a chance, or Tanganga. But he wants to have that left-footed balance, and the only person that is doing that as in a moment is Ben Davies. So again, going back to just quickly, go on, please, just quickly going back to his Chelsea team. Azpilicueta, excuse me, I've probably battered his name. But he is a fullback, right? And he played him as a left centre back. Because that's what he did. And also, you look at the Kyle Walkers and what Pep's done with Kyle Walker, for example. Yes, he's a genuine right back, but actually he plays him on the inside sometimes, obviously on the right, but as a centre back as well. So that's what Conte's doing with Davies. Does he think, or do we all think, that working with Conte, Davies could actually step up and do a job, and actually we should be focusing on a War or a creative midfield player or another striker more than a left-sided centre back? Sorry, Talia.
Yeah. No, that was actually pretty much what I was going to say toward the end. I was going to say, of the people to replace, I don't think he's anywhere near the priority list. I think, everyone kind of refers to Davies as this reliable guy. And I think they must see that. And there must be a reason why people keep saying that. And maybe we as fans don't necessarily do that. Yeah. But because that's who we are. But for Wales, he does a much better job than he ever has done really for Spurs. And
they love him at Wales. The fans adore him.
And he looks much more comfortable in that way than the way that we play him. And I think 100%. With Conte, he seems like he understands people's weaknesses and their strength. And he's not going to put a player in a weak spot because he's not an idiot. He will use him to that strength. And I think there might have been something to do with that. And this might be a bit premature to guess, but Ben Davies did that massive shot today. He just had the confidence to just shoot a goal out of nowhere.
Yeah.
He's not that kind of.
He scored those before, hasn't he?
He has. He scored one of the cup for us, didn't he? Carabao Cup, I think. I want to say.
He scored against Arsenal, didn't he? He got disallowed.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing with Ben Davies and Dyer is that 5 years ago, neither of them were starting as centre backs for Pochettino. So it does give this sense of us going backwards, the fact that they are both starting now.
Yeah. And
I think that's
so true.
And you know who was starting with Vertonghen and Alderweireld, and I felt at the time those two left way too early. Centre-backs go on till they're 36, 37. I feel a bit like Jose threw them under the bus a little bit by playing this ultra-defensive style where over 90 minutes, any player in the world, apart from Van Dijk maybe, is going to get found out. And they did, and then they got sold on. And I think, imagine now, instead of Davies, Dyer and Romero, imagine teams fearing us if we had Vertonghen, Alderweireld and Romero as a back three. I think it's such a shame that those two have gone. I think they had more to give.
And Talia, don't start going back to Walker and Rose. You know, this is it. I mean, I totally agree. I mean, if anyone, this is the problem. If you're comparing and looking at standards, that was the time, wasn't it? And I know Lee, I don't want to get Lee into, that moment again with Kyle Walker, because I will never forget, we're talking about this being our 400th show. Lee warned me on that show when he came on for the very first time. Lee warned me, if we sell Kyle Walker, we are going backwards, and it's not going to be easy to replace him. And here we are. And what are we now, Lee? How many years later is this, Lee? You're with me? How many?
It must be, that must have been
25 years.
Absolutely outstanding. 17-18 season he must have gone, mustn't he?
Yeah.
17-18 season, I'm thinking.
And we can't forget, Moose and Dembele, of course. Listen,
stop it.
We've got to try and keep people up there, not bring them down.
Paul Russell makes a point in the comments as well. We've got Sessegnon. I mean, Paul Russell makes a point that he won't make it with us, but let's just have a think about Sessegnon, right? In that transfer window that we signed, the one after we didn't sign him on 518 days.
Celso and Dembele.
Celso and Dembele, Jack Clark and Sessegnon, right? So we spent the money.
Jason described it
the worst. They spent the money that season. Recruitment, you could say, was woeful, but they still spent the money, right? Yeah. And Sessegnon was 30 million quid. He's hardly kicked a ball for us. When he did play, and he played higher up the pitch, he scored a wonderful goal against Bayern Munich, away, by the way. I know we lost the game. But, this is I don't want to be patronising, but this is a kid that's had some serious issues with injury and all that sort of stuff. But if he can come back and be injury-free, he could be amazing for a Conte side. And we've already got him in the squad. This is what's very frustrating about being a Tottenham fan, because you look at the players and the game is not played on paper. And let me tell you, I'm a massive advocate of seeing what's in front of you, not what's on paper, as the two businesses that I run will suggest. But the reality is that we have got some good players that need to be coached. Get them on the training pitch and coach them, and get them to stand behind after school and practice in their corners and free kicks. We might be able to get a bigger tune out of some of these players.
Yeah,
I remember Klopp saying about like he tries to fill every position, particularly attacking positions, with players who score goals, and it's an undervalued and underrated quality. But that's what the game's about, It's why I wouldn't have, if you're going to have three up top, I wouldn't have Lucas as a third one, and I'd try and find him a place further back, because he's just. Even though he's been playing so much more than Dele Alli, I think he's still scored fewer goals in the Premier League than Dele has over the last year or two. Dele, I would have right up the pitch. I can see we're going to have an argument, Lee.
Not at all. No, I'm a massive Dele Alli fan. I'm not going to talk about it because I get pelters.
Yeah.
I was just going to say about Sessegnon, to have Sessegnon in the team. That's a goal scorer. That's something. I mean, we saw Reguilon today. He's not a goal scorer. He might score one a year. Sessegnon, all of a sudden, if he can get over those injuries, that's the thing. If he can, that's another player who's going to get you 7, 8, 9 goals a season in all competitions. Yeah. That's valuable.
Yeah. I must just say, for the purpose of this, Conley.
I was going to say, when you look at Doherty, right, and look, I know Talia, and I know he came on as a left back rather than a left wing back today, rather than the right wing back. But this is the thing, like you say there about 6 or 7 goals from a wing back position. He got 7 goals and like 8 assists or something like that in his last game at Wolves, last season at Wolves, and he comes on. That hasn't happened for him. I get that, but I think, Andrew, the point you're making is having players in the team that are going to be able to chip in. Who would have thought that that Moses would have chipped in with goals and assists for Chelsea? No one. Every Chelsea fan would have probably got him out of the club. But Conte turned him into absolute worldie. He was absolutely outstanding for them. So hopefully he can. I know he's not a magician. That's Poch. But maybe Conte can wave some sort of wand to get some of these players. And look, he's had 2 training sessions and 2 bloody games. So let's.
Honestly, I mean, Ondai, was on for 20 minutes at left wing back. I mean, let's be honest, mate. It was very unsurprisingly, always wanting to cut inside when on the ball. I don't think he actually played that badly, but again, a player's going to really provide, again, divide opinion. We're going to, like I say, look to sum it up. We'll just quickly go on a few of these wing backs very quickly. Let's get some final thoughts on this. Talia's face when you said Doherty. Like I say,
my nan is better than Doherty's just cracked me up because it's so true. Oh, I hate him so much.
Poor Matt Doherty. I hope for his sake he doesn't watch this show. If you do, Matt, we will bring you on at some point for that tribute show when you do probably end up going back to Wolves at some point. Emerson Royale, let's go on the players now very quickly to kind of sum this up. He got forward from his wing-back role, saw a header from Sergio Reguilon's cross go over in the first half, always looked to the attack when given the chance, but also did his bit at the back when called upon. A good shift overall from the summer signing. Talia, Emerson Royale, how have you found him so far? Have you been impressed from the Brazilian since signing?
Yeah, do you know what? I think credit where it's due. I think he's putting in a shift. He's making the runs. He's doing what he's meant to be doing. He looks pretty good going forward, which is what I think, we need in this style of play that Conte is trying to, provide. And, he's a new signing, so it would be a bit disappointing if he didn't kind of fit that bill. But no, I don't think we can fool it. He is making the runs. He looks like he can cross the ball quite well as well. Tried to header. I think, he needs coaching as well, especially he's new to the team, not just the manager. Yeah. And I think with time, I think we've definitely got quite a decent player on our hands. I think him and Romero as, two kind of newish additions to this 11 both look really positive. And I would like to think that under Conte, I think they're both going to be really good. And I think, Emerson looks decent. So, won't sign him off.
No, that's absolutely fine. Let's come along to Andrew. Andrew, on our other wing back of the day, Sergio. I'll be careful how I pronounce this now because I don't want to batter it as you just told me. Sergio, tell me I've got it. Reguilon?
Well, firstly, it will be Sergio.
Oh, God. Sergio.
Reggie, mate.
Yeah, Reggie will do. Which is complicated because the Gio part of Lo Celso is Gio because it's an Italian name. But Sergio.
You know I'm just going to do a Lee and call it Reggie. I mean, he received an early yellow after bringing down Andros Townsend. He looked good. He looked across the halfway line. Had Spurs his best chance of that first half, of course. A shot wide on the stretch from Harry Kane's cross. Continued to push upfield after the break, but to no avail. Reggie, as I'm going to call him, does seem to divide opinion with Spurs fans. People disappointed by his lack of drive going forward. Maybe defensively at times he's been suspect. Do you have high hopes from under, a top-class coach in Antonio Conte?
Yeah, I think he's a good player. Look, it was only a few weeks ago that everybody started panicking on Spurs Twitter because we were talking about Real Madrid wanted him back. All of a sudden, we're panicking. Oh, no, he's the best player Real Madrid. And now, a few weeks later, those links have died down, and now he's the worst player. It's somewhere in the middle, isn't it? The guy, he put in a few crosses for Bale last year that were phenomenal. So he's obviously got it in his locker to provide some great assists. He doesn't score when he goes through on goal, right? He's got something missing there, unfortunately, that Sessegnon does have if he gets over his injuries. But as one of two wing backs in your team, he's a pretty good player. And we hadn't had someone like that for a couple of years. We were playing with Ben Davies there. So, it's a huge upgrade on that in terms of a wing back. So I think he's a good player. He didn't have a good game today. Apart from he had that shot with his right foot that could have gone top corner, though I think Pickford was going to save it if it wasn't blocked. But yeah, I think he'll come along as well. They'll all learn from Conte a bit, and we'll see. And if in a year he is that good, Real Madrid will probably buy him anyway. So let's not get too excited.
Yeah,
I think he had a stinker just to add, because I know the people, I think what the people I guess want to hear in general is today he was really bad, but he does possess the skill set that we need, and we have seen that. And the other side of Emerson is that he can do that too, and he'll use them very differently to how they've been used before, and they both have that. I was watching a game on Thursday and he was right in front of me. He had so much space, Reggie. He was just standing there waving like, give me the ball. He's hungry and wants it. I think he just needs more consistency, and that I think is an important word. He just needs to be more consistent. He has quite a lot of mistakes in him at the moment, and I think with time and hopefully coaches that are better equipped for this style of play, he will iron out those mistakes and become someone that can put in those crosses that people can head in and actually be more creative for us down the wing.
I think he played better when the ball's moving faster. If you watch some of the games, I think when we're going backwards, sideways, and it's slow, I don't think he plays as well. I think when he has to think about something too much, it's almost like he is not as good. I think
When he has time, he panics.
Yeah, it's like exactly that. I think if it's instinctive, like 1-2 touch football, give and goes, I think I could see him being a good player. And again, especially like Andrew said and Talia, you've just said, under Conte, you can see him being a much better coach. I think every player you will see an improvement in over the next kind of 6-7 weeks. But by Christmas, we'll really know where we are as a team under Conte, and hopefully we'll get the transfers out. Do you get me?
I get you. And just to finish up, Lucas Moura had Spurs' first effort on goal after showing some good footwork, only to see his effort blocked by Michael Keane. Looked lively, but lost the ball a number of times when his end product needed to be better. When we said that about Lucas Moura in a Spurs shirt.
Just quickly, I know you've got to finish off, but just quickly on Moura, this is what's so frustrating about the guy. On Thursday, I thought he looked like the Ajax Lucas Moura. This is what I thought. I thought, hello, we got the Lucas Moura from Ajax again. And then today, I thought we saw going down cul-de-sacs again. I didn't know what to do. Kept tripping over the ball a little bit. You just think to yourself, why can't you just have a shot? We can see how good he is when he finishes it in midweek, when he finishes at Ajax, hat-trick against Huddersfield. He can finish a bag to brace against Manchester United a couple of years back. He can finish that guy. He's got it. But he goes down a cul-de-sac so many times. It's so frustrating. Andrew, you mentioned earlier about kind of goals and assists from Dele versus Lucas. Lucas's return in the Premier League for Tottenham is shocking. It's absolutely woeful. And whether or not you like him or not and think he tries, it's woeful. And he's in the team, surely, to be scoring and assisting as well as creating chances, but he's not. He doesn't fulfill that every single game. So that consistency level is dropped. But today, it was almost like he wanted to take the game by the scruff of the neck and do something with it, but he didn't have the ability to, and he kept going down dead ends. And maybe look, credit Everton. Maybe they defended really well, and Rafa set up, and it was difficult to break him down. But he does lack that element of it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Harry on the screen there saying he hasn't had a manager that's given him a proper run of games. Poch really played him. Hopefully, he gets under Conte, and that's one thing I do want to say. I think it'll be interesting to see now with these players their true potential, because Conte is a world-class coach that we know, like Pochettino, does coach players, right? He makes players better than what they are. So this will ultimately be the key. Just to finish Heung-min Son, because that was the first time back at Goodison Park since fans returned and was jeered practically every time he had the ball following his challenge 2 years ago that saw Andre Gomez sustain a challenge. Now, I don't want to say that the crowd affected him.
I think they did.
I think
they did.
I do. And, he just couldn't have he just couldn't have an impact on the proceedings. Dragged the shot well wide of the target, went through on goal. Or the linesman did latter raise his flag. Now, Lee, in the past when I've asked you about Son, and I've said to you before why I feel Son for me is just that level below world class. And you've said to me in the past, honestly, and Rick, you said to me, Rick, I want to put you in your place here. He is world class. It's games like today. For me, it's games like today when you need a player to step up. And listen, I want to make this clear. Son has stepped up massively. Stepped up for Man City, stepped up in the Champions League, stepped up arguably more than Harry in some of the bigger games. But I think it's these games today, like now, when you need a moment of brilliance, that's when you need Son to step up. I don't know if you agree with me on that. I love Son.
Yeah, I do agree. I do agree with you.
I love Son.
Yeah, I do agree with you. And I think that, I still think he's world class. I think what he's done, he's absolutely lauded in Southeast Asia. And, he's unbelievable. What the weight of expectation.
He's a wonderful player. He's a wonderful player.
Everything he does, probably far more than what most of the other players in the squad do. And he does step up and he is brilliant. But what I would say is that he was affected today. And when you see Son, when Son's at his best, and by the way, I think it's with everybody, when everybody's at their best, even in in the general normal world, when you go to work, whatever, you got a smile on your face and you're enjoying it and you're laughing and you're smiling, you play better or you perform better or you have a better day at work or whatever it might be. And Son didn't play with a smile on his face today, and he couldn't because I think it got affected. I think we know how bad it affected him. He cried and everything when that challenge happened with Gomez because he thought he'd ended his career. And I think the Everton fans got to him today. I do.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, Talia, Andrew, let's finish on Son very quickly before we wrap up the show. Andrew, let's come to you. Heung-min Son, any concerns? He's a listen, I think he's Son for me. Just to be very clear, he's a very, very good player and he's stood up for Spurs in big games. I want to make that absolutely clear. Where are you on Heung-min Son for you, Andrew?
World class, absolutely world class. But today, yes, because of what the fans said, the actual what had happened, the reason for the booing of the fans, I think it really did get to him. You can say a professional shouldn't be affected by booing, but it's not like I'll show them and I'll score a bunch of goals, because it's like, I accidentally broke a guy's leg. Was it his leg? It was his leg, wasn't it? Gomez.
It was. Yeah.
I think that sometimes, though, and this is something that as Spurs become a bigger club, is what I was talking about before. Like, it's okay to have two great central midfielders who don't always play together, because we need a squad. And I think sometimes we need to be brave enough to say, although Son did come off, didn't he? I'm so in Dele Alli's camp, and I want to see him playing as that player. I'm not sure you can have Dele and Son in the same team, because I think they're the same position, both running off of Kane and getting into the box. They end moves, they don't start moves. Dele Alli never started, even at MK Dons, he played some central midfielder games. I think he's about League One as a central midfielder. He needs to be playing where Son is, and when Son is blowing cold, when he's not having a great game like that, I think that's when you've got to go, okay, well, let's go to Dele, because we've got a guy who can get into the box and score better than most players in the league or Europe right now. So he had a poor game today, Son. I'm right behind him. I love him. But when he's not having a good game, just like with Kane, we don't have someone to bring on. I think Dele has to become that player.
Yep. Talia, I only right to finish on somebody that doesn't hold back on any player or any manager on this show. Oh my God, I think you've been through a lot of players and a lot of managers. So let's end it with you.
You've got to be loving Son, though. You are loving Son. You've got to be loving Son.
Of course I love Sonny. I actually used to hate Sonny right at the beginning. Do you remember his first season?
You
where he
hated
used to leave
Sonny?
the ball all the time.
His first season was ropey.
Oh my God. I hated Son as much as I hate Doherty, no joke. And I've never done
Doherty's coming good, Talia.
Honestly, I've never done
masterclass.
Such a big 180 on a player than I had Sonny. Very quick. And I mean, my hate was founded, but since then I've loved him, obviously. But no, all the points are true. I mean, Sonny's amazing. I think he scored so many important goals to us, arguably more than Kane. He really has scored so many. He's an incredible player. He truly loves our club for whatever reason that is. He loves it, and it is so lovely to see. And he always gives everything. I think the crowd obviously had a part to do, or with his game today, in terms of he's such an emotional player, whether he tries to or not. He genuinely just cares, and he was crying his eyes out when he did that to Gomez, etc. And I think that is PTSD is a bit strong shout, but going back to that and hearing people hate you because of something you did by accident is really draining to anyone. And I think
guys apologised on multiple occasions as well.
Exactly, and any fans would do it. We'd do it back. But I think Sonny's one of the nicest guys in football. So for him, that mentally definitely did affect him. But at the same time, I think today as a team, we just weren't very well gelled in general. So I don't think it's a full excuse for today. We didn't really see anything, but it's not like anything's wrong with Sonny. He's probably just tired as well.
No, as we all are indeed. And I must just say again, as we throughout the show, if that final pass was right, what this Spurs team might be. Now, after the game, Antonio Conte said on spending a week of preaching the need for patience that he made it clear the club is still some way off from challenging for the title or even reading in the established top four. You wouldn't be surprised. He said that I think we made many mistakes in the final pass. I think it's very important to actually hear that from a coach, that he actually can see what we're seeing on the pitch. He said that I have to be happy for different reasons, but we have a lot of space to improve. I saw the heart of my players, the willingness to fight, to sacrifice. If, like I say, it has to see a negative, it is the many mistakes with that final pass. And he now has 2 weeks to work with his his non-international players, and begin in earnest of the job of transforming this Spurs team.
That's the only problem, isn't it, Rick? And the team.
That's the shame now. It's a lot of players.
Everyone says that we haven't got a load of squad, but most of our squad go away on international duty. Rodon's not going to be there for him to work with. Do you know what I mean? Ben Davies is not going to be there for him to work with. All the normal, Son and Kane, and who's he going to have there? He's going to have Dele, he's going to have Lucas, going to have Tungo and Dembele. Lo Celso's gone, Romero's gone, Emerson's gone, Hugo's gone. Højbjerg's gone. Skip, I don't know if he hasn't been picked for the.
He has been picked.
He bloody should be. Do you know what I mean? So he's not going to be there. So, everyone sort of says, we ain't got strength in depth. But, our 23, probably 19 of them are internationals. So who's he going to work with? And that's a shame. So under Sir Alex Ferguson, I always go back to this. He'd have them all pulling out and keeping them at the training ground and stuff and getting them. Because he almost needs like a mini pre-season, doesn't he?
Yeah, totally agree. Just to Alan there, can you extend the show? I want to miss watching the Hammers on Match of the Day. I can tell you we would love to extend the show. But I think for reasons of, like I say, keeping my wife to some kind of degree happy, we may have to, like I say, cut proceedings short on what's been a tough week as it is, as you guys know. And I can confirm, for those that asked me on Friday on the Fabrizio show, yes, we are still married, going strong. And I can tell you a good old, it was actually, we actually went for a tie night on Friday. Was it a tie? I think it was tie. That's how bad it is. I've even forgot now what we had. I think it was that tie that sorted it. So, yet another week, Last Word on Spurs survives. And I must just say again, our 400th show on Last Word on Spurs, I don't know how we've done it. And I say, let's hope we're here 400 later talking about the trophies coming under Antonio Conte. Thank you so much for all, like I say, the support throughout the show, the listeners. Like I say, we have nearly 700 of you watching us tonight. So many lovely comments again. Thank you ever so much. With thanks to our great guests that have been on. We've had the brilliant Andrew Gold join us for his debut. Andrew, if debuts are like that, then we're looking forward to Conte signings. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Yeah, better than no, not as good as that Dean Richards one. Do you remember that? That was the best debut I can remember.
Was it? Yeah. Well, not that. I don't think the result was in the end. I think we won't mention that result because I think anyone that watched that game knew how that ended. We won't mention that result. But yeah, great header to start with. Andrew, where can we find your podcasting and what you do?
Oh yeah, well on YouTube, also Spotify and Apple and all those places. On the Edge with Andrew Gold, talk to lots of crazy, weird, strange people. There's also, I did an interview with the fella from AFTV, Robbie Lyle. That's the only football related one. So yeah, check that out. He's a strange guy.
Strange guy, interesting. Okay. Well, listen, that's why we sit the Spurs on this podcast. We only get the best on here. Like I say, great to have Talia back on. Talia, I think we've got you booked back in the diary in December. So you'll be seeing Talia before the Christmas lights come on. So like I say, more Talia to come. Talia, thank you so much as always.
Always a pleasure. And I saw someone say I would hate puppies. That's not true. I'm actually really nice. Spurs just make me angry, okay? Yes, I'm just honest.
You know what? Lee will tell you, right? Lee will tell you that Spurs are not good for your health. And Lee, like I say, it's not good for your health. You know, when Lee, I've got to say very quickly, when Lee stormed in on this chat before we started, the anger in him, he came on before we even said anything. The frustration in him before he came on. I think an hour and a bit later, Lee, are we all cathartic and calm down now? Are we all good?
Well, this is the thing about the show, and this is why I love the comments when people say it's therapy and all that sort of stuff, because sometimes you just want to talk it through. It's like having a chat with your mates in the pub. And, we're very, very fortunate to have, 1,000 people or 2,000 people or 700 people, whatever, watching live, people listening to our podcast. I mean, I don't know. I said to you the other day, Rick, privately, I listen back to all the podcasts, whether I'm on them or not. I walk the dog. I do exactly what everyone else does, right? They listen to Last Word on Spurs or they watch it back. And I do the same thing, when I'm exercising or I'm walking the dog or whatever. And it's just therapeutic. It's like we're all talking to each other. And I will say just quickly this, the lift that Antonio Conte appointment has done for us Tottenham fans has been absolutely amazing. I mean, the dread of doing some of these shows sometimes under the previous regimes, the last two regimes, and so on and so forth, it's been hard. It's been really tough. So to get to 400 after some of that rubbish that they've been serving up. But the reality is that with Conte coming in, it's lifted everybody, and it feels like that we're back on the right path. And we've hit rock bottom, and now we're going to start moving up again as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I totally agree. I must have that on the screen there from Craig. Talia is just channeling her inner Conte. I prefer to kill these players. We put the wrong assistant there. Really, we should have had Talia alongside him. To be fair, and I say the comments. Honestly, I bet you would. I'm sure there'll be a few players in there that wouldn't be there come Monday morning. That's for sure.
Best of luck, Luke. Best of luck, mate.
I'll tell you, bring Talia back. I say Talia is coming back on. Like I say, we've got her back in December. And Andrew, I say, will be back on for us hopefully during the season. To Andrew, to Talia, from Lee and myself, guys, please, most importantly, keep safe, keep well. Good news for you. Spurs are going on an international break. Last one on Spurs isn't. We've got lots of shows planned over the course of the international break. So keep safe, keep well. And as always, come on, you Spurs.